So, hi everyone, my name is Sam Bishop. I have already been introduced as someone who has set up a few different projects in the city. So, the ones that you might have heard of are Street Feast and a thing called Upstart, a company called Upstart, which runs kind of creative projects and aims to inspire creativity in Ireland. So, I really appreciate that I'm kind of coming from a very much outsider's position, and I guess why I'm here is to maybe show you how we do it in terms of getting an idea and then testing that idea, even like seeing problems and trying to identify which one we're going to work on to improve, I guess. But what I realized is that my background in architecture has, I guess, shown me that like I kind of I look at things and if I see a problem, I automatically, in the back of my mind, I'm looking for a solution for that problem. And I'm sure not maybe everyone is constantly doing that, but there's always going to be ways, as you've seen earlier, people are constantly having ideas, and it's really great when you kind of have that idea, but it's sometimes almost disempowering if you have the idea but you never actually act upon it, or you never share that. And so I'm going to run through, I have about 20 slides, and I'll show you, I guess, examples of our work, but also through that hopefully I'll be able to explain things which we've learned and you might be able to pick up on for your own ideas. But one of the things that I only came back to Ireland about 3 or 4 years ago, and I think that coming back to Ireland, you come back with a kind of naive eye. You come back seeing things you wouldn't usually see. So it's a bit like going into your apartment or going along your daily route to work and completely changing the way that you look at that daily route to work. Like looking at the small things. And I think that being away from Ireland for a bit, or going travelling, or working in another country, and then coming back to Ireland, you start to see things which you would take for granted. So, for example, as I was explaining with the vacant sites, while some people just see dead space, other people see opportunity. And so, often it's the people actually in the department who will actually see the failures or the gaps or the holes or the places to actually insert something new. So I guess what I'm saying is that like I wasn't here in Ireland for ages, or I wasn't in let's say we call it a department for ages before I could see a problem or feel confident enough to implement a solution. But actually I just came back and I saw an issue, and I said, right, I'll just get stuck in and I'll try and find out who else is working on that, and then I'll, if no one's working on that, then I'll start something. But I'll just run through a few other things here. I guess where I fit into the city is that I run other things as well. I run outdoor cinema nights in Pavilion Square, Dartmouth Square with Peter O'Brien. Very much so, like this first slide I showed you before this it's very much about bringing people together. And when you bring people together, you get people talking. And when you get people talking, ideas start happening too. And so I'm a great believer in getting conversations started. And whether that be through events or entertainment, if you can get those kind of meaningful conversations going, that's where ideas start to go from just that dream or that idea to a little further along the step to making them a reality. One of the projects that you might have heard about is Granby Park, which just closed yesterday, and I've just come from the building site where we're taking it down. It was a 1-month park up on Dominic Street, which was social housing, and that got knocked down in 2006. And so the idea was to, while it's empty, show what's possible on a vacant site. Test it, show that we can experiment with things. With a temporary project, you find that there's actually things which you might not which you would usually come up against. Let's say, for example, planning. If you do it within a short amount of time, you actually don't have to apply for planning permission. It goes down a more of an events route. So, looking for ways in which you can implement things, and not necessarily kind of find loopholes, but kind of find different routes about implementing an idea is always something that we look for in Upstart. But our background is mainly about promoting creativity. You might remember these posters which were around the general election in 2011. We invited 1,000 artists to put forward pieces of art and we put them up in a general election. And it was something that came about through, we had no, I guess it was a fun project, it was in a political context. We weren't actually, had no political message, but we had, the thing was, we had the idea, but we didn't know each other, we kind of came together as a group of friends, or colleagues, but we didn't have any money or expertise in doing posters, or we weren't graphic designers or artists, really. We just basically wanted to see something like this happen. And I guess what I'll show you today again is that we weren't experts in implementing the idea that we had. It was more that we were able to convince other people that it was a good idea to do, and that those other people who had the skills were able to get involved. But also, the feedback we got was great, and it meant that we were able to go forward and to implement new projects. So this site up on Dominic Street, we saw it as an opportunity. We saw it as a way to show people that there's something more than just a vacant site with some needles and some rubbish on it. And that by just even doing one project, rather than, the vision might be that we actually animate many more sites around the country, but instead of trying to do everything, we felt it would be better to do one project, and then by doing that one project, developing a report about that and being able to show that to councils around the country, or to community activists, or to residents, and say, well, look, this is what we did, you could do a part of that on a vacant site near you. And so there was a lot of testing behind these projects, kind of seeing what would work, what wouldn't, a lot of consultation with council, with local businesses, with local community. I appreciate these are quite big projects, but that I'm talking about here, but they are also ones which started from a small seed of an idea. And so that's why I kind of feel important to continue to remind people that even though the smallest of ideas can have a lot of impact, they're often very scalable. What we have realised over the course of this project is that the council have been really brilliant in removing some of the obstacles for people to organise in the city. And so what I find when we're doing various events in the city is that what traditionally would have been, let's say, you have to do quite a lot of paperwork to get your idea through from an idea to reality. If you actually speak with people in different departments, you find that actually people are really willing to see these kind of ideas happen. It's just that there are these things in place, and if you can find help to negotiate these and fill out these forms, or to get help from different departments to collaborate, that can be really powerful, and it can really speed up the process and shift it from being like kind of this gate or this apparent wall from moving your idea any further to actually, well, no, actually, if you do it this way, you can definitely get your idea through. And so this is Granby Park here, that was open for the last month. It is a big project. It wouldn't, one of these sites could just have maybe this greenhouse on it, but it's just to kind of show people that this is what's possible when you bring together loads of volunteers. So we had 40,000 people visit the project. We had events every day, and it was all completely run by volunteers and by goodwill. And when people, I guess the main thing here was that we had a strong vision. One person had a strong vision, shared it with a group of people who felt they could share that vision. And what's really key, and what we'll look at in the next project, is that if you are able to communicate your idea well, to the point in which other people see the value of your idea, then it enables them to get on board too. And it's very much down to the work that we do is all about collaboration. And so I think I think your name Jerry, you were saying how when you had the idea, you gave Shane a call, and I find now that I have to find other people to talk to about before going any further. Like vocalizing the idea and and just talking it over, even if it's over a cup of tea, a pint, whatever, just to kind of to see if am I too mad, or is this something that actually could be reality, and getting that feedback from people, and then maybe getting it down on paper and going to some more people really helps to kind of get it from an idea to reality. I guess this is only the first part of our project. We're kind of aiming to create this toolkit, which we hope to give to councils around the country to show different ways in which you could change vacant sites. I'm going to run you through street feast as well, because for me this is one which I'll be able to show you a bit more about how we tested our idea. Street feast is a national day of street parties, which I and a couple of others started in 2010. And so earlier this year we had the 4th annual street feast, and we had 20,000 people on the streets around the country having a meal together. What we're trying to do is to bring people together, to create stronger communities, but also to help people to realise that like public space is space that doesn't have to be just for cars, that we could, if we want to, apply to close our street for the day and have a table down the middle of the street. And that's what Street Feast does. It tries to get people together around a table. Something really simple, like it's not a new idea, but sometimes many of these things, many of the ideas that we have aren't necessarily brand new ideas, but there's something which has evolved. And so by having a national day meant that you could get a kind of, you could get the communications up, you could really inspire people just around one day, and that's the power of Street Feast really. But it was very much about kind of seeing, okay, so we have a breakdown in many parts of the country, especially in commuter estates, where there hasn't been the time for people to get to know each other. There are, let's say, ghost estates, but there's also estates where people just are afraid to even knock on people's door. They don't have an excuse to knock on people's door. We almost need an excuse. On the other hand, we have a kind of quite a disconnection with food. So like there's a lot of issues around our carbon emissions and around encouraging a kind of local consumers of local food. So by connecting those two together and realising actually if we connect kind of community with food, and I guess that was where the idea came from to have a national day of it. And looking at inspirational projects, looking at projects that already exist for advice, but also for inspiration for our own project. But then also brainstorming, testing, getting together in teams, and lots of post-it notes, trying permutations, seeing what might work, what might not, kind of identifying the challenges really helps to kind of then streamline your idea, and then from that working out timelines of how you will implement the whole project. So it's very much project-based approach that we take here, and it's a strategy really. It's like identifying, okay, so if this happens, then what do we do? If that happens, okay, right. And if you plan everything in terms of the timeline, then like unforeseen things generally won't happen. So that's kind of how we develop some of our projects. But it's very much like Street Feast is all about removing obstacles for people. So by helping people to advising people how to organise things in their own area, you start to I guess put into plain English how you can organise events in your public space, which is probably something which needs to happen in Ireland anyway. Is that we can kind of put things in plain English and get people to really understand that it isn't actually that big of an obstacle to doing something in your local area. And by doing that, giving people a toolkit. And this is really the essence of Street Feast. And really this came out of an idea of, okay, well just, why don't we use our public spaces more? Why don't we have food together more? Actually, just by sharing food together, it creates a real leveler. It's a real, it gets everyone on the same page, really. So, for these projects, often it comes down to budget and how you can actually figure out how to implement these projects when you only have a tiny budget and you're also trying to pay yourself as well, and you've got multiple different ideas. So it's often you can't actually do everything you want to do. You have to kind of prioritize how you're going to implement it this year, and say, right, then once we've done it for 1 year, we'll scale it a bit bigger next year. And that's just something you have to, while you might want to do the biggest, the best project at the very start, often it's about patience and about saying, well, what is my capacity? How am I going to be able to make this a successful project, but also still kind of have, I guess, be able to survive the course of the project, that it's not, you're not totally dead by the end of it. And as we heard earlier, that when it sounds like now you have to actually be able to carry out the project, your idea. It's very much the same for us. It's like we're only going to be able to put forward a project if we know we can actually achieve that. And so, but it's okay to have a really big vision and then to narrow that down until you go, okay, this is something we can work with. So it isn't about creating 10 creative parks around the city. It's about going, okay, so what is the scale in which we can get to? And like, for example, our Granby Park was actually quite small. At the start, it was about creating a little urban orchard in the city with some art. And that actually then, once we were able to express that to other people and other people who came onto the team, we realized we could actually expand the project, and we could bring in the cafe, and we could bring in the trade school, and we could actually build an amphitheatre. And that came through bringing more people on board, through that getting a lot bigger, a much bigger fundraising platform, but also a lot more professional advice and experience, just through bringing more people on board. I guess just to kind of sum up, like for me, the ingredients for a successful project are really about like having that idea, distilling that into like a strong vision, being dedicated to it, like being willing to kind of try it, get hit back, go again, try again, like believe in your vision, but also while doing that, having a willingness to be flexible to things that might come your way, and you kind of suddenly realize, actually, I'm going to have to change tack a bit. Finding people that you can share your idea with, building a team, clearly identifying who it's for. A lot of this is kind of out there, and you can Google a lot of this about kind of running projects, but for me, these are the key things. And ability to communicate your vision, because when you have that idea, it's so hard to, if you just come out with loads of sentences about what you're trying to do, if you can break it down to maybe one sentence, it really helps other people to go, yes, and I'm willing to support that, and I'll make sure that I can help that happen, that idea happen. So I guess for my 3 words of wisdom for today, I guess it's about talking about the idea, get creative with the idea, put it apart, put it back together again, and then make sure to collaborate. And look at the people, look at those key holders, the people who might be able to make this happen a bit more easier, and remove some of the obstacles to making it happen. So that's it there.